who knew about the issues and intentionally hid that. A number of other groups also created scientific and economic confusion. And it occurred to me that ultimately, in the end, despite the fact that I studied economics and I studied environmental science as well, in the end, this isn't a scientific issue. In the end, this isn't an economic issue. Fundamentally, this is a moral issue. Fundamentally, this is a question of right and wrong. I noticed that for a long time in this country, African Americans weren't given an appropriate education. Why? Well, scientific reasons were given. They're not capable of education. At a certain point, we as a community realized that that was simply intentional confusion and that this is a moral issue. This is an issue that can be dealt with in science that's beyond that. It's a moral question. There was a time when women weren't in a position, weren't allowed to have leadership roles in our society. And scientific reasons were given. Brains are different, incapable of understanding complex issues. And at a certain point, what was that?
He just nodded when you said that.
And there came a point when we grew beyond that, when we matured beyond that. And that's something that we as a, to a degree, yes. But here we are with women in leadership positions in this very room, which is a great step forward for us. Just consider recently, a few generations ago, that wouldn't have happened. It's something for us to be proud of. And at this point, we are in a position to make the same kind of moral choice. Slavery, injustice are evil. And for us to move through a period of history when we have been actively engaged in supporting those practices and then complacent in those traditions, to move through that and to start to take action is something that we can be proud of. Not that we've resolved those issues by any means. Certainly we haven't. There's a long way to go. But those who have made those changes, and in this case, to talk about civil rights, successfully did so because it became clear that these are moral questions. These are ethical questions. I was just recently at a little restaurant in Eden, which is a really nice little spot. And the economy isn't flourishing there. They were clear with me. Maybe it's flourishing in Burlington, but sure isn't flourishing out here. And it was a family restaurant. It's been there for generations, and they shut it down this year because in the winter they depend so much on snowmobile traffic. And this year we didn't have that. Ski resorts right now are suffering terribly. I love skiing, one of my favorite things to do. Even this winter I've managed to go almost 100 times. Plan on going this afternoon again. Yes, it's very important to me. That's why I live up there near Eden. To be that close and to some of the snow, and ski resorts are suffering. And that same restaurant, I talked with the matriarch who loves sugaring, and they're having a terrible time right now. They have up on the wall of the restaurant, they have all their prizes they've gotten over the years for their sugar, for their maple sugar, and they don't know what's going to happen to that. The sap quality has decreased dramatically, and the trees, as you may know, are moving north by more than 10 feet a day. Will we still have skiing? Will we still have sugaring in this state? What are we doing to our culture? What are we doing to our heritage? What are we doing to our communities? family restaurants and such, the poor people who are suffering. This question of the powerless suffering, this is a moral issue. During the period of training that I did in Asia in order to take up the pastoral, the spiritual leadership position that I have now, I lived in India for a while. And I saw those people struggling even more. With the glaciers melting in the Himalayas, there is just not enough water. There just isn't. And that means that people die. It means that people die. And people are dying today. I've heard a lot of people talk about how this is something that we have to worry about for the future. Of course it's something we have to worry about for the future, but it's something we have to worry about today. Millions of people have already been displaced or killed by global warming. Millions of people. And this is therefore not simply a scientific or economic issue. It's a moral issue. The moral question for us to answer is, do we believe that the poorest and most powerless should suffer and die for the convenience of the rich? This is the question. At this point in Vermont, we have rich companies who take money from us. Fossil fuel companies take money out of the state, taking it from the pockets of poor Vermonters. And this strategy of the carbon pollution tax, this strategy is a way of holding those resources here for the poor, keeping Vermont money here, and in so doing, resolving the larger questions of the injustice inflicted on cultures, on civilizations, whose existence is at risk. I lived for a while near Bangladesh, and as you may know, Bangladesh is at risk of its very existence in the future. And India has started to build a huge wall along the border because they know, everyone knows what's going to happen when there are millions of refugees trying to get out of flooded areas. That we know what will happen. India knows. They don't want to be involved in taking that many people. And so they are choosing to build a wall so that those people will die where they live now. Why? What is their choice? But we have a choice. Because we also are complicit in this. As we emit carbon, we're creating that very problem that they're trying to avoid. But we are actually creating it. Of course, India is too. China is too. But the US is too, and Vermont is too. And we have the obligation, the moral obligation, to do something about it. The Pope Francis, has been a great light in this movement. It's been very heartwarming to me to hear what he said. And he recently said, a true right of the environment does exist. He's clear about this. Nature has rights as well. Any harm done to the environment is harm done to humanity. Human beings, he said, are not authorized to abuse nature, much less to destroy it. He said, a Christian who does not protect creation is a Christian who does not care about the work of God. That work that was born from the love of God for us. This is a moral issue. It's an issue of justice and love. I, myself, was brought up Christian. I eventually trained as well in the Buddhist tradition. And the Dalai Lama, one of the leaders of the Buddhist tradition, said this is a question of life. It's a question of survival for the entire planet. Today, more than ever before, life must be characterized by a sense of universal responsibility. Universal responsibility. Not only nation to nation and human to human, but also human to other forms of life. In terms of Buddhism, the very first precept, which is something like the commandments in Christianity, the very first precept is to not destroy life. To not destroy life. Not destroy any form of life. And certainly human life. And yet we're engaged in that right now because of carbon pollution. And absolutely, the economic issues that I studied, thank you for that presentation on that. These are essential to understanding how the problem is playing out. But ultimately, it's a question of morality. Do we believe that the poorest and most powerless should suffer and die for the convenience of the rich? It is that stark. And it's important for us to see this as such a clear issue of ethics. You said earlier, how can we make a clear, simple argument for saving your life? I think you can make that argument. We can say, we're saving your life. We're saving the culture of Vermont. We're saving your business. I'm not going to get into the economics because, frankly, the economics have been clear for almost 100 years now. The fact that we continually think about it in those terms doesn't allow us. It's of course important to include that, but it doesn't allow us to move into the more uncomfortable issues of ethics. And I'm not getting into the science. The science has been clear since before I was born. I understood it when I was 9. I studied it when I was 8, and I understood it when I was 9. It isn't complicated. What is complicated, what requires deep reflection, is the question of our own ethics, the question of our own decisions regarding our relationships with our fellow human beings and all life on Earth. That's something that we have to decide. We know that this will benefit Vermont's economy. That's absolutely clear. We know that it will benefit nature, save lives. This is clear. It is clear. The question is our obligation to the fossil fuels companies who want to take money out of the state, or is our obligation to Vermonters and to life on Earth? It's important for us to see it as this stark moral issue. Because until we look at it that way, the discomfort that comes will make us avoid dealing with the stark facts of global warming. So, I plead with you for my friends in India, my friends in China, my friends in Vermont, for all life on Earth. Please, move forward with the act of putting a price on carbon pollution.
Not a perspective that we hear a lot about, especially in this building. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer, or we can finish there. Or we could sit in silence for 15 minutes.
That's not going to happen.
Have a half an hour.
You know, I think a lot of us struggle with what you are saying. We just don't articulate it as well, or we're afraid or embarrassed or whatever to bring it to that level. And what strikes me is that what's played all the time is that the very folks that you spoke about in the beginning, the poor people, where those of us who are putting forth this prospect, we're accused of hurting them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I understand that
Yes.
game, okay?
Yes.
It's what we're seeing play out on the national politics right now with a few of the folks. But it's a pretty hard game to stop.
Yes.
and turn around. And especially when folks, there are a lot of folks who, they look at their lives and they see the things that you said you enjoyed skiing. Well, they enjoy snowmobiling, they enjoy dirt biking, whatever it is, but it all uses fossil fuel. And, taking away from their ability to pursue the things that they love, they see as a threat by us, quote, rich intellectuals.
Yeah, and that's your job. I'm not a politician. I didn't, I didn't become an economist either, or an environmental scientist.
Right.
I chose something else to study for 10, 20 years. The issue is one of communication, and that's your specialty. How do you communicate the fact that we can, thank you for being so clear, and maybe I'll bring in my papers that go into some of the details that you were asking about.
Yeah.
How is it that we can structure this so that it enables those people to do what they want to do more? There's no reason it wouldn't. Right now we're talking about giving people money, cash that they can use for whatever they want. They can of course use it for snowmobiling to the extent that they want to. They could use all of it for that, or they could use it for other things. Maybe making some investments in the restaurant so it doesn't close, so that they have more income so that they can go snowmobiling. Or something unrelated, whatever it is. The issue actually needs to be communicated. It's an issue of communication. How do you convey the fact that this is already structured in such a way that there will be the ability, that people will have the ability to continue what they love to do, while penalizing a certain amount of the use of certain substances that cause pollution. However, if I could, not that I'm a politician, but if I give you a piece of advice, it's less likely that they're going to be able to go dirt biking or snowmobiling, this family that I'm talking about, if their sugaring operation closes down.
Right.
It's less likely that they're going to be able to go snowmobiling if their restaurant closes down.
Right.
It's less likely that they're going to be able to continue anything that they and their family, been there for generations, love to do, given the direction that we're going in. Furthermore, as much as we like to do those things, we have a moral obligation to care for the people who are suffering the most as a result of these, if I could say, evil changes that are happening on Earth, in which the powerful certain companies have continually confused the issue so that the status quo is maintained. This is an issue of communication, and you're the experts there.
Mike.
Yeah, so as you said, we're politicians, and when we talk about subjects like this, we almost always have to frame it in terms of economics and practical factors that our constituents are facing. Communication, we communicate on one level, and what you are suggesting is that we rarely communicate on the level of morals, and we're not expected to. And if we do, then we're
and the civil rights movement happens.
A lot of cases we're overstepping our bounds, and so my request is that not only do we need to communicate, but others need to communicate, such as yourself, so that the moral argument is actually out there, in the media,
yes,
as well as within your congregation.
Yes, yes, I agree. That's a responsibility that people in my line of work have to take on with far more courage than we have. It's something that I every day feel ashamed of.
And I think the Vermont Interfaith Power and Light, whom I think you are here representing today, has done a terrific job of communicating within that enclave.
Right. That's right.
But it has to somehow
It does.
get out.
You're right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. That's our job. And it's your job. And that's why we're sitting here together. That's why I'm so grateful to be here having this conversation.
Well, I want to thank you for, I'll say it, but I don't mean it like that, for bringing this perspective to us. It's not bringing it to us, it's reminding us
Yes.
Reminding us.
of who we are. And we all got into this game, not to get wealthy.
Yeah.
Because I think we're people throughout our lives that have tried to help people as much as we can, because I think each and every one of us have thought that we were fortunate to have what we have, and are willing to share that. I know that that's why I got into this game, and it's a tough, and it is a game,
Yes.
and it's a tough game to play, and it's a tough game to stay in for a long time, because you get beat to a pulp.
Yeah.
You know, every day we're on the floor, and we start with what we call devotion, and thankfully over the years it's not about, you know, a particular God anymore. It's about reflection, it's about peacefulness, it's about music, it's about art, it's about poetry, and occasionally it's about God. But then we have that, and then boom, okay,
Right.
let's forget about that and let's go on, and then we get into this. So we just had this huge budget debate where you know, the folks who created or who wrote and built the budget were saying we need to help those who can't help themselves, and if that costs us more money, that's the responsibility of why government exists, and we often get beat to a pulp with response, but it doesn't stop us.
Exactly. Exactly.
And we
that's
keep going forward.
exactly, and that's the point.
Yeah.
And the primary point that I teach in my life now is how do you go from that period of reflection to the period of the game, you could say, which is a competition often,
Yep.
and sometimes it's painful.
Yep.
How do you make that transition, which you described with the word boom, without experiencing a clear separation between the two? That's the question, because if we lose that at that boom moment, then not only do we get eaten up from the inside, but we don't ultimately carry an authenticity that defines a leader. So this point is the great issue, I'd say, of our lives, of mine, and certainly yours. And this topic right here, this putting a price on carbon, this act, is one in which we can practice maintaining that clarity. Yes.
In addressing the boom,
Yeah.
yesterday, the pleasure of talking with several students in here, and we were talking about what we do in this committee and in the State House, and afterwards the teacher said that in preparation for coming here, they had been looking at what we do in terms of not just policy, but empathy.
Wow. Beautiful.
And empathy for human
Wow.
empathy, but also environmental, social.
Beautiful.
And I kind of swelled up.
Yeah, really. Really.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. I loved that lens.
Yeah. And a true lens.
Yes.
And as you said, probably the reason that you're all sitting here in the first place.
Well, I want to thank you for bringing it to us.
Thank you for
The
having
witching
me.
hour has drawn.
Yes.
Um,
Thank you for
Thank
making
you.
this possible.
Really appreciate it. Okay, so I think we're on the floor